There was once a time when the acronym for a short hop fastfall L-cancelled aerial was commonplace in the Melee community. Nowadays it is a term that is rarely used anymore. This isn't due to shuffles leaving the metagame, in fact, they're as essential as ever. Rather, this is due to the fact that it's simply too obvious to modern day Melee players that you'd want to perform these steps. Short hopping, fast falling, and L-cancelling are all so elementary that they verge on being instructions you'd find in a game manual. These might have been considered advanced techniques in the past, but in 2020, they're entry level. But what if there was a key step to shuffling being overlooked this entire time? An oversight so significant that even Melee veterans would be incentivized to relearn a technique they thought they'd mastered back when they first started playing. Well, that oversight exists. In this video, I'll be revealing what I consider to be the most important technique in Melee that nobody talks about. As always, subscriptions to my YouTube channel are super appreciated if you enjoy this kind of Melee content. For today's video, it is important to understand what permits a character to fast fall during a short hop, full hop, or double jump. During either of these states, there is a very specific requirement that must be met before you can fast fall. That requirement is for your character's y-axis velocity to dip below 0 for 1 frame. Then your character will be able to fast fall on the next frame. When Fox short hops, for example, he begins with 2.1 units of upwards velocity on the first airborne frame. This statistic is called short hop velocity. Then Fox's velocity declines at a linear rate of 0.23 units per frame. This statistic is called gravity. By frame 11 of his short hop, Fox's velocity has reached the point of being a negative number, which means he'll be able to fast fall on frame 12. If Fox performs this fast fall, he will spend a total of 15 frames in the air. Different characters have different short hop velocity and gravity statistics, which means their fast fall timings are different as well. Here's a chart showing these statistics for the tournament viable characters. At first glance, the numbers I just showed you would appear to be set in stone, but why is it then that one of these foxes appears to be performing shuffled nairs faster than the other? Both foxes are fast falling as early as possible within their short hop, as well as L-cancelling their nairs, which would suggest that there shouldn't be a difference. To find out what's going on, let's take a closer look at both of these foxes. The one on the left was inputting nair on frame 2 of his short hop. As expected, this fox's short hop velocity was 2.1. He then went on to fast fall on frame 12 and spent 15 frames airborne. Now let's take a look at the fox on the right, who was inputting nair on frame 1 of his short hop. But wait a second. This fox's y-axis velocity on frame 1 is 1.87, which is 0.23 units or 1 gravity constant less than the other fox. Then, because this fox is ahead of the curve, he's able to reach negative velocity a frame earlier than normal and fast fall on frame 11 instead of frame 12. He ends up spending only 13 frames airborne. The second clip reveals that by performing an aerial attack on the first airborne frame, you are able to apply gravity on the first airborne frame, as well as fast fall a frame earlier than usual. This mechanic, which we'll call frame 1 gravity, exists for every aerial attack in the game. Whether or not this mechanic was intended, it is extremely applicable in competitive play. Frame 1 gravity speeds up your aerials considerably, which can allow you to string multiple aerials together more effectively during combos, or poke at your opponent more swiftly in the neutral game. The most advanced use of all, in my opinion, doesn't have to do with speed, but rather the fact that your character will be lower to the ground than usual. This can allow you to hit shorter characters with aerials that would normally go over their heads. Here's a chart showing exactly how much time frame 1 gravity saves you on shuffled aerials compared to their frame 2 counterparts. As you can see, every shuffled aerial in the game is sped up by 1 or 2 frames. Feel free to pause the video to take a closer look at the chart. Another fun fact about frame 1 gravity is that it can be applied by certain specials. If Fox fires his laser on frame 1, for example, he will achieve the same effect of being able to fast fall a frame earlier. I don't consider this too useful for short hop lasers since the height you'll shoot the laser at is too high. But for full hop double lasers, frame 1 gravity is great for pelting opponents on side platforms more rapidly. Here's a chart showing which specials can apply frame 1 gravity. The specials that don't lock your y-axis position are the ones that work with this technique. That brings me to an important piece of advice for those looking to incorporate frame 1 gravity, which is to understand how it affects your fast fall timing. In Melee, fast falls can be buffered up to 3 frames prior to the frame they take place. So, for example, if you were planning on fast falling Fox's short hop on frame 12, you could have buffered the fast fall on frame 9, 10, or 11. But now that we have frame 1 gravity to consider, this game plan gets shaken up a bit. Since frame 1 gravity lets Fox fast fall on frame 11, this means he can buffer the corresponding fast fall as early as frame 8. I recommend avoiding timing your fast falls for frame 8 since it normally isn't a valid input. For similar reasons, avoid frame 12 as well. Instead, look to time your fastfalls for the 3 frames that overlap. This way they will work regardless of whether you apply frame 1 gravity or not. As always, the best way to practice these timings is to use the Uncle Punch training mode ISO. Another pointer is that while frame 1 gravity is great, it isn't always the best choice. Late aerials, for example, still have plenty of merit for hitting your opponent later into your jump so that you receive better frame advantage. Another reason not to use frame 1 gravity is that it takes some aerials out of their auto-cancel window. With Captain Falcon's back air, for example, a frame 1 shuffled back air won't auto-cancel, but a frame 2 shuffled back air will. Basically, keep in mind that while frame 1 gravity is a strong technique, there's a time and place for everything. Finally, I want to steer GameCube controller users in the right direction in terms of the inputs they use to perform frame 1 gravity shuffles. I'm bringing this up because unless you use a claw grip, you might find it difficult to perform aerials so quickly after jumping. Lots of players aren't fond of claw grip because of its awkwardness, so it's good to know what the best alternatives are. The goal of these alternatives is to use 2 different fingers to jump and attack so that you don't have any issues with reaching buttons too slowly. The first method is to use the X or Y button to jump, and then the Z button to aerial. The second method is to use the analog stick to tap jump, then the C stick to aerial. The third method, which specifically makes it easier to short hop up air, is to jump with X or Y, then point the analog stick up during jump squat, and then up air with Z. This method works because once you jump with X or Y, the game only checks to see if you kept one of those buttons held, which makes it impossible to full hop with the analog stick. Frame 1 gravity is, in my opinion, one of the strongest techniques in the game. Its learning curve is quite demanding, however, as it requires a frame-perfect input. Still, if you manage to incorporate this technique, you'll be rewarded no matter which character you play.